Hi guys, what's up? I hope everybody is doing good, and this time I've really put some effort to bring this out very quickly. The suggested answers for the September 24 Audit and Ethics paper. So first let me give you a couple of sense on what I felt about this paper. So 60% of the paper I believe is something that you can handle very easily. When I say that, including the MCQ part, like that is of the 30 marks of MCQ, I felt that 18 to 20 is achievable for everybody who have good decent knowledge in order to have done their revisions well. And also in descriptive, of the 70 marks, 30 to 35 marks are fairly expected questions, in the sense generally in the line of expectation, what we think ICA would ask. Maybe a attempt here and there, things would change, but their questions are answerable. But there are about 10 to 15 marks in the question paper which are the questions are very introspective. That means you need to read, understand, immediately figure out, you have the right standard should click in your mind, and which part of the standard you should write, that also you should be focusing on. So if you guys have done that, I think it's overall for me a fairly decent paper. I won't call it easy, hard and all that. It's a decent paper because based on the feedback that I've received on the exam day, there are a lot of people who said that they did well, especially the MCQs. Now I've prepared the suggested answers, so you can cross check what answers you wrote and what you should have written again. Before I proceed in further, this is just a disclaimer that these are the suggested answers, and it is not essential that it has to exactly match with this set of the answers. So if you have written answers here and there a little bit compared to what this is, you need not worry or panic right now. And also use this just as a guide, so that at least you can understand where you stand. Many of you know what you wrote, so this will just be a guide, and this will also be a great help for those people who are writing further attempts, and that is exactly the reason why I've released it. And like I said, it did go very well for me in preparing the suggested answers, because what I felt, again, the questions are way simpler than what I thought it should be. And MCQs, there are like the great part about MCQs is that only 15 questions were there, all around each 2 marks, that is getting you a great set of marks. So let's go. The first set of 3 MCQs, non-case based MCQs were asked. For some I will do a detailed study, at least for the MCQs. Later questions I will just tell you through, so that I don't want to elongate this video. I will leave the PDF of the suggested answers in the description of this video, so that you can take it, download it, sit at ease, and then think of what you wrote versus what it is. And for, like I said, further attempts, people watching this, you can download and make the use of it. So I don't want to stretch the entire session explaining line by line, but certain points I thought I should tell, that I will definitely tell. So part 1 MCQs. For the first one, they asked that Mrs. DEF Associates have appointed as statutory auditor the JKL Limited, and for the first time, for the financial year 24-25, which means it's an initial audit. The partner CAD is briefing his engagement team about the need of engagement standards and quality control standards in the areas of financial statement audit. Out of the following, which point is not correct? So if you're focused on what they asked, standards ensure quality is correct, standards equip professional accountants with knowledge and will is right, and standards promote uniformity, which is also right. Standards ensure audit established with local practice. I think this word should be global practices, then it would have made sense, and since they gave local practices, this one is the answer. Second question was damn easy if you know what topic they're talking about. They asked, as per standard number 300, description of which of the following matters is not part of developing an audit plan. I shout so much in my class that developing an audit plan has only 3 points, talking about first 2 points talking about 315, and then something talks about 330. So NTE of further audit procedures is 330, NTE of risk assessment procedure is 315, other planned audit procedures as per the rest of the standards. So basically it's following standards. NTE of resources which are necessary to perform the audit, this is part of the overall audit strategy and not audit plan. So if you have concentrated enough in the class, you could have pulled off this one easily. Then third one, going by the board of directors of the company wanted to auditor to certify export sales. Now this is a point on UDIN. UDIN requirements have been discussed in audit report chapter. UDIN is required for every certificate or report that the auditor gives. So the auditor signed the confirmation letters to be sent to various debtors and creditors confirming their balances. UDIN is required to be generated in. For all regular confirmation letters, we don't have to generate any UDIN. It is not a unique number. Only the export sales certificate, if you do it, that will be good enough for that. Okay, so those are the first set of 3 questions which I guess are getting you about 5 marks. Then followed by a huge case scenario. Like I said, I don't want to waste time. I want you to run through the case. I will straight get to, depending on the case, I would want, but again, much of you would have understood the story that it has to do very less with the case and more with your knowledge about it, right? Due to tight deadlines, CAB has insufficient time to properly perform or complete the relevant duties, and he has to sign off a clean audit report. Now, you cannot give time as a reason to wind up things faster. Which fundamental principle governing professional ethics is disregarded by him? He has not taken professional competence and due care in finishing the audit. Undue dependence on fees. Now please tell me guys, many of you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the case above? It is there very clearly in the book. No, undue dependence on fees is self-interest rate. Job done. Then okay, this point, since it became impracticable for CAB to attend physical inventory counting. Now this is from reference to SA number 501 on inventory. If you have heard that right, if it's impracticable, which means it is a problem with respect to the nature of inventory, and also became impossible to perform alternate procedures, which means both the doors are closed. It will lead to auditor unable to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, and therefore he will have to modify the opinion in accordance with standard number 705. Which assertion is concerning bifurcation of employee expenses? Some of the expenses are this, some of the expenses are that, is called as measurement. I don't think anybody would have found it very difficult to, those of you who have studied and gone, I don't think you should have found anything difficult in this. Yeah, maybe here IFC, some people, 134 subsection 5 clause E, which is the responsibility of the board of directors. So with reference to IFC, under the Companies Act, which of the following does not fall in the nature of responsibility? It's a director's responsibility statement has to be given. That is what 134 subsection 5 clause E talks about. In accordance with the terms specified in writing of the board, an act of every audit committee to include evaluation. Yes, that is it. Board of directors have to appoint an expert to state that IFC are commensurate. This is not necessary, because the very same work is conducted by statutory auditor under 143 subsection 3 clause I. So statutory auditor is anyway giving a report on the effectiveness of IFC. Okay, so specifically nobody need not be appointed. Okay, so if somebody focused on the basics, well, this 5 into 2, 10 marks, like I said, is like a cakewalk. Then okay, a lot of stories given about in case scenario 2. Moving on, what are the questions? Let's see. Which of the following need not be included by the audit team as part of audit documentation? Audit documentation will have only final records to go through, right? In the first point only they gave the word draft. So draft audit engagement letter need not go into the audit documentation. A signed final copy of the letter, if it goes, that will serve the purpose. Then moving on to 10th question. In case of difference of opinion between joint auditor, now I shout my heart out whenever this point comes in the class, that you are not bound by the majority, right? What course of action should be taken? Difference of opinion, each of them will give a separate opinion. So option is clear, they can issue a separate report, standard number 299 on joint auditors. Then section 52 of the Companies Act talks about securities premium cannot be applied for which of the 5 uses are mentioned, and then securities premium of Pawan Limited cannot be applied for which of those? Writing off of expenses, commission paid, writing of debit balance in P&L account for the purchase of its own securities, which is called buyback, in paying up unissued equity shares, that is converting fully paid up shares, all that we can do. A debit balance is P&L account, you can't write off using securities premium because it is not in the 5 mentioned uses. Then CAI, who is in charge of non-cooperative society, wants to ensure that society contributed for charitable purposes, there is a very clear, I make them in my class write the limits very clearly. 10% is the limit, contribution not exceeding 10% after the compulsory transfer to the reserve fund. That is a straight point, it's picked out of the book. If you know it, you get it. And then moving on to the last case, we have questions on financial events or conditions that may cost a significant entity, but they are asking which of these is not a going concern pattern. Shortage of important supplies is operational aspect, it is not financial. What kind of audit report the auditor would issue if the use of going concern basis of accounting is appropriate but a material uncertainty exists and adequate disclosure of the material uncertainty is made. Okay, now here you have to see here, material uncertainty exists. This is where many people got carried away. Material uncertainty exists, adequate disclosure of that is made clearly, so you can still give an unmodified opinion. Many people gave wrong answers in this bit. And then if auditor is of the opinion that written representations are not reliable, then when requested written representations are not provided or provided but not reliable, we will disclaim an opinion, which is also a point in standard number 580. And this point here, uncertainty about going concern, is about 570. So like that, if you have concentrated well on the standards, nowadays it's like if you take a whole class about a one full standard, they are bringing something and giving you for 2 marks. So if you can get this done well, I hope things will be way more easier in scoring these marks. Like I said, in my opinion, if you have proper presence of mind, getting 20 out of 30 shouldn't have been a problem. And if you have studied well, revised well, and focused well in the exam and picking up the answers, I think you should be able to go anywhere between 26 to even reaching up till 30. Let us move on to the part 2. Part 2 is very, very interesting in terms of how questions have been framed and all that. So let us see what they are talking about. Let me go by a flow. Like I said, anyway you will have to sit and read the suggested answers well, but wherever I want to give my piece of advice, I would run through a fairly in a decent amount of time. Let's try and wind up this, because like I said, I don't want this to be a session of making you understand. So since the paper is there, you will understand it later. So CA Rashmi is the auditor of ABC Limited. They gave that story and all of that. This was about communication from central government about initiate. This is like they got an incentive about this much. But what happened was, before that, financial statements were prepared. Now the board of directors wished to include the incentive amount in financial statement and requested the auditor to issue a fresh audit report. By the time you see this, there is a clue in the question which says it was paid to the company before the end of April 24. The financial statements of the company were not yet issued to shareholders. From that catch, you got to pull this. This is a story from standard number 560, right? Which talks about 2 types of events. Events that come to the knowledge of the auditor after the audit report, but before they being issued. So the answer has been worded according to standard number 560. You can run through the entire answer. Like I said, I am not really focused on reading line by line. You got to pick up that piece which says, let me write that cue for you, that is subsequent events which are between date of audit report and date of issue of financial statements. So date of issue of financial statements. So between both these dates, what is the story? If you can figure out, you can sum up this, and entire detailing I have anyway given, right? So this is one of the damn simple questions from essay 530 that I've seen. This is from sampling, 2 questions. If this is the same example that we give in the class also, breaking trade receivables into, here they gave 3 groups. Generally in my classes I do 4 groups, right? A, B, C, D. Same way here, 10 to 20, above 20, 10 to 20 and below 10 hit it. So this one, case 1, wherever he split like that, this is stratified sampling. And 50 consecutive checks. If you remember, we have joked enough about this being one of the most ridiculous methods called block sampling, right? So they gave in the exam about stratified sampling and block sampling. You can, that's like gifting marks. So first 2 questions, damn cool. And yeah, very easy point to ask is the third one, because it's from the first chapter. They were appointed as statutory auditors, PD and Co. And the following clause: the auditor shall be responsible for detecting the frauds. Every student of auditing knows this basic, that auditor is not responsible for detecting frauds. Here the story is just only discussing about the question of who is responsible for what. Our job ends when we give the opinion. So we write those 2 points and we get all the marks that we need. We have to write about reasonable assurance. And what is reasonable assurance? We have to write that, and it is management's responsibility for prevention and detection of fraud, not ours. Plus frauds could involve carefully designed schemes to hide it, and this answer is straight out of the, the first chapter. So there, and the conclusion says, therefore the objection is valid and it aligns with the principles of audit, is what I have given as a conclusion. So obviously we will object putting up something like that, because it's not our responsibility to find out anything here, right? Then talking about the last question in the first, the last bit in the first question. This is from Caro, Company Auditors Report Order. Clause 7, paragraph 3 is about disputed and undisputed. This, to be very specific, it is 7A. And there is a very important point there. A mere representation or a letter to the department is not considered as a dispute. On that one single point, this entire question is based. They only informed, and the overdue is more than 6 months. So clause 7 requires you to talk about regularity of payment, any outstanding dues, and you have to check and say, in this case it is outstanding for more than 6 months, and therefore the auditor has to put the outstanding amount in the Caro reporting of the auditor. So that was question number 1 for you guys. Very easy, 4 bits. First one talking about SA 560, then 2 questions from SA 530 on sampling, 1 on basic principles governing the audit, and then the last one on Caro. Moving on to question number 2. This is a very interesting question, because the very same example is there in the material. I don't know how many of you noted that. Generally we use the word, is that the question they're talking about, reconciliation? Yeah, let's see that. CAB was appointed, Star Limited, you wanted to ensure, yeah, reconciled. Bank reconciliation statement is given as a very good example whenever we do the act of re-performance. So if you could catch up that point in the exam, you would have written the entire answer correctly. And he wants to understand whether and how far the internal control system was operating in the company. What kind of test of control was be using? Apart from asking that, what are the other procedures also asked? So the question is about what kind of test of control is being discussed here. So for this reconciliation part, you have to write about re-performance. And when you say other procedures, you have to write the IOI, which is inquiry, observation and inspection. So you got to write all 4 methods of testing of internal control. Re-performance is used in this case. Other 3 are also available. Then second one, this is a very easy question. Vouch or verify the overdraft balances. We can figure out from a nationalized bank point of view, obtain balance confirmation, review ledger, reconcile any differences. So I've given you all the points. That's one of the very procedural easy questions. Schedule 3 of the Companies Act. I 100 times want the students to run through Schedule 3 before the exam and go. Not only that, this is also part of the vouching verification chapter. Your chapter number 10, audit on items of financial statements, we've given towards the end. What are some other ratios? Here I picked up current ratio, debt equity ratio and return on equity. A long list of ratios are there which you have to disclose nowadays. Mention any 3 they asked, so I gave these 3. And then the last one is one of the very, very highlighted questions of that chapter, explaining the interrelationship between audit strategy and audit plan. All that is, it's a small paragraph. That paragraph I broke down into 6 points. So it is straight out from the chapter number 3, which is on standard number 300 on planning, which also is a very, I don't see any grave difficulty in people trying to identify answers to these 4 questions in question number 2. Moving on, yeah, this is something where I thought very less number of people would have been able to identify this. 3A, this is a question from the topic of internal controls, and in that we have 5 points about internal controls. One is about control activities, one is about control environment, one is about monitoring, right? The 5 points from standard number 315. So here they are asking CA Amit, who is an auditor of 11 Limited, while conducting the audit, want to analyze different components of internal control and identify and explain which components is using in the two cases. First one, they are saying operating as intended, and are they modified as change in condition. For change in conditions, we have to use the concept of monitoring. And in the second one, they are asking whether effective segregation of duties is there. To check effective segregation of duties is there, we have to see whether controls are established. It's called control activities. So these 2 points are out of standard number 315. Its applicability. I gave the answer: monitoring activities and control activities. Kindly go through that. So that was one question. And B was very easy, but I don't know. I think some of them might have misinterpreted it and messed it up. This is a little tricky in nature, because one of the student put up all the draft inventory sheets and final inventory, it seems. But I think if you went to chapter 6, 230 on documentation says you need not keep all the draft inventory and all that. But in this case, the audit assistants kept it, but draft and preliminary documents are not required to be kept. So this is SA-230 giving you all the story. Guys, if you have watched our revision series also and picked up on these standards, you could have answered 60 to 70% of this content very easily, right? Then so audit documentation include only those are relevant to the auditor's final opinion and conclusions, and any drafts and all are not included. Preliminary ones, a documentation that gets superseded by another, all these are not included. K Limited is availing credit limit of like so much, and their drawing power ranges between this and this. But here, this is a very, very nice way of asking a question. Not difficult, but an intellect way of asking a question is, this all data had nothing to do with the serious question that they had. See there, they had not deposited any amount of cash credit. That is a very important point. Okay, no transactions took place, and no other credits were also there in the last 2 quarters, which means in the last 6 months, no credits have happened. How will this account be classified in the books? Now, this is a point where we have to understand. Normally, loan accounts will classify as NPA, right? That is an easy way of, this is overdraft being classified as out of order. I explained this point in very detail in the class, because generally, one odd attempt they'll ask this question. I keep telling people in the class, out of order means where there are no credits for 90 days or more in overdraft account, they call out of order. So in this situation, it is considered as out of order. So in K Limited situation, outstanding balances within the drawing power, but lack of deposits or credits will be there. So therefore, it is classified as NPA. Please go through the detailed answer for that. And lastly, this is a damn straight question. I can I don't want to name the page number, but because multiple people use multiple books. So why use of statistical sampling method is more scientific and appropriate. There is a topic called advantage of statistical sampling. If you put these 5 points down there from the book straight, like this is a copy paste. Even in other things, we can at least understand what did C Limited do, K Limited do. This is the damn copy paste question that from the material I pulled it off and put it here. So it's one of the most easiest questions, the advantage of statistical sampling. Okay, this is again a question from the 3rd chapter, which talks about deployment of human resources, STD, scope, timing and direction. Okay, let me read it for you. EGF Limited has appointed MNCO as chartered accountants and statutory auditors for the year 24-25. CAN, the engagement partner, completed his risk assessment procedure. However, he is concerned about the management of human resources. So he wants, while establishing an overall audit strategy. This is the last point, point number 5. Ascertaining the NT of resources necessary to perform the work. This is point number 5 of the concept of the overall audit strategy, and those points are being put here. Depending on the complexity of the work, we will identify so that we put the right person in the right place. So establishing overall audit strategy, assess the engagement partner in managing the audit of EGF Limited by providing a clear plan for the STD. It ensures that team members with right skill and experience are assigned. I gave that as a conclusion. Please go through that. Yeah, this is a question on accounting, guys. Generally, I'll tell at least one question they will ask you on based on your accounting knowledge. This was that. I think all of you knew this. They've incurred 5,70,000 on dismantling an old plant. When you dismantle an old plant, all dismantling costs which are done so that the new asset can be erected should go for capitalization. Capitalization of dismantling costs. Ind AS 16, AS 10 on property, plant, equipment. Detailing has been given. Simple points you can. The next one is a 3 marks gift. I will call this as a gift because of a simple reason that whether you use the words present fairly in all material respects or give true and fair view, they are all regarded as being equivalent. I don't think, I never thought that this would make up to the exam level only, first of all. So this is the story of this question. And yeah, this is a straight question from chapter number 11 on irregularities, serious irregularities in working of the cooperative society. If you find these 5 points, personal profiteering, fraud, I think if you studied that and went, you would have pulled off this easily. Moving on to question number 5, guys. Question number 5 is a story of 5A is asking the question about, he's been auditing the books of Kali for the past 3 years. The company recently made some major changes in the business policies. While planning to start the audit for the 4th year, which is the financial year 24-25, the audit manager, as per routine practice, handed over the previous year audit program as tweets to the audit team and asked them to adhere unfailingly. Look at how many questions came this time from the 3rd chapter. Interrelationship, overall audit strategy. They were so obsessed about asking so many questions from that chapter this time. Generally, audit evidence will be more focused, but this time planning and materiality was more focused. So there's a straight, simple point. The decision of the audit manager to hand over previous year audit program without considering recent changes is not appropriate, and we know that why, because there are so many things that change, and risk and internal controls can change, old procedures can be outdated, so therefore it requires an updated audit program. You cannot copy that audit program, and we know this straight away. This is a question, guys, this was not there. Those people who have been studying audit before May 24, that is before the revised syllabus, you guys might have not studied this question. So this is an addition in the May 24 syllabus as to what are the, whenever you want to use the information of management expert. So in this question it says that company called D Limited used an expert and auditor wants to use that. So while evaluating competence, capability and objectivity, what are the points you will check? So these are the set of points you will check. This is a straight question from the book. When information to be used as audit evidence has been provided by management expert, auditors should consider these matters. So all these points you have to consider. The knowledge and experience, availability of alternative sources, if not this, what you can bring in, all that. Then digital audit, I didn't think this would come. It's a small paragraph with 5-6 points. This came for 3 marks. So explain the use of digital technology. A very small paragraph is there. This paragraph can be put across in 6 points, right? And then Mr. J is an article clerk with big chartered accountant firm, is part of the engagement team. They're assigned work of preparing the draft engagement letter, standard number 210. I shout my heart out, contents of the engagement letter, right? So, and also I would generally expect people to write this last point. If law or regulation prescribes in sufficient detail, then you need not record all these. Objective, scope, responsibility of auditor, responsibility of management, applicable FRF, expected form and content. 6 points, though they are 5 in number, 6 very important aspects. And what is the definition of engagement letter? Either in written form or any other suitable form of writing. If you put the agreement between you and the client, that is only called as engagement letter. This is from 210, damn simple question. Coming to the last one, how will you check provisions, like the process of verifying contingencies in the bank? This is chapter number 12, audit of banks, last but one topic. You got to put that as, it's a procedural question. I don't, if somebody has not written this, very good, because you had an internal choice for the next one. What do you mean by deficiency in internal control? I shout again in the class, deficiency is not just about internal control not working properly. It is about deficient, a control is not just working properly, but a control required is missing. That is deficiency. When it comes to significant deficiency, significant deficiencies are the ones that merit the attention of management. So what is significant deficiency? And in this case, describe the nature, potential effects and provide sufficient information. All this we have to do, but our fellow wrote only one line. That's what the question is actually. Say, He says controls over significant transactions with related parties are weak. That's a very vague statement to make. You have to give a broader detail. So as per 265, what is the communication? This is from chapter number 8 on completion and review. If you did 265, you should be able to do that well. Oh, this is a question on confidentiality. This one is a very interesting question. In terms of employment and professional relationship, he has to be alert the possibility of inadvertent disclosure of any information. So CAP has to divulge information and documents as part of legal proceedings. So Mr. CAP is not telling information to the whole world because he likes giving information, but he is telling it because it's a legal obligation. So therefore the rule of confidentiality is not violated by CAP, and that's what is the story. Then positive confirmation. This question is from SA-505, 7th chapter on audit evidence. Essay number 505, trade receivable confirmations. State and explain the type of confirmation request that was used in this course of the action. It was called positive confirmation. Very easy to figure that out. And then last one was about leasing company. Direct question from the book. What are the 8 points that are there in the audit of a leasing company? This is a straight question from chapter number 11 on what do you say, this one. The numbering I might have used different chapter numbers because those chapter numbers match with my material. So somebody's material, if it's not matching, don't take offense. But overall, I hope if you have heard me till here, I would again rate that this is, if a well prepared person goes to the exam, scoring 70 plus in this paper is not difficult. And if you have done decent preparations, range between 40 to 60 is very achievable. If you are not getting through to this paper, it would definitely attribute to you not studying well or you not having requisite knowledge. That much I can tell. So decide in which category you would fall, and the reason why I made this is so that people have a judgment about what they do and they can go further. Alright, so I'll stay in touch with you guys very soon. I will also make a similar version for strategic management, and I will keep in touch with you guys. So I will see you in my next video. Thank you guys.